Good morning, everyone. We are so glad that you guys are tuning in for our post show after today's message. This is like our sixth time doing it. I know I say this in like the Q&As and in the post show, but it just blows my mind that we've already done it this many times.
You do. You say it every single time.
I really enjoy it. It just gets me excited.
Is it? Now I'm just used to it. I'll be shocked if it doesn't happen.
Even though I was
This
almost
is our
late.
150th time.
Hey, 150, we're definitely celebrating 150. But like 47, we don't need to celebrate 47. Confetti cannons.
Yes,
We're going to
love
shoot them so then like in a year we're doing another one and one piece will just fall down in the camera in the middle of a
Let's
Q&A.
use glitter.
Oh no, I hate glitter. I'm not going to sit in this chair.
How do you think Steve would feel about glitter in his recording
Well,
studio?
I know Steve loves glitter, so he might
He
not
does. That's
necessarily
true.
hate it. He just wouldn't want it to be on his tech equipment. Well, anyways, my name is Josh. I'm the youth pastor here again. We are so glad that you're joining us. I'm here with some amazing people. Do you guys want to introduce yourself in case we have anybody new?
Sure. I'm Lexy. Good morning. Hello.
Hi, Lexy.
Hi, Lexy.
Hi, Lexy. My name is Layla. Hello.
Hi, Layla.
Hi, Layla.
Oh, we're doing that.
Yep. Why not?
Okay. All right.
It helps people remember their name. And then
And I'm Dave.
hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
Dave. How was everyone's week? You have a good week?
Yes, very good
We
week.
missed you last week, Layla.
I know. I'm sorry I couldn't make it, but
Did Char have a softball tournament?
she did have a softball tournament, and I needed to sit out in the freezing cold rain and support her.
Of course you did.
Yeah, I'm ready for this rain to go away. It was not fun.
Yeah.
It was not
Yeah.
fun. It was cold yesterday. All right, well, let's hop right into it. Today, Dave, fantastic message. What were some of your favorite parts about today's, we'll just say service in general? Some of your favorite things about today's service or Dave's message or even Perry's wrap-up?
I didn't get to see Perry's wrap up, so I can't talk about that.
I will say I just loved, I think, the closing comments. It's just really, I think, important to support women who have gone through this situation. And as we were talking about before we went live, this is an extremely hard topic for me. Pretty much the video you showed is what happened to me, right? So my mom sat on a table and tried to have an abortion with me. And she went back twice also. So the first time, they couldn't find me. And they were, I was at this point, my mom, she had already had 3 kids. So she very, very clearly knew she was pregnant. And they were like, you know what, you must not be quite as far along as what we expected. So come back in a couple weeks and we'll try again. And she did that. But the laws at that time, she was too far along and they wouldn't allow her to, do the procedure. And she told me, she shared this with me, I think, relatively, as soon as I could start to digest, what it was like to, have a baby and abortions and things like that. But she framed it in a way that laid down the foundation of how I carry myself throughout my life. And she just said that, sorry, I told you I needed the tissue, that God protected me and that I was destined to be here.
Yeah.
You can literally throw it at me. And I usually do really well when I talk about this, but I think it's just really, so just one tissue.
There's more.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome.
I think it's just like, I get more emotional about the fact of like, I can't imagine what women feel trying to make like such a tough decision.
Yeah.
And the fact that when it is successful, like I feel so bad for people who carry that burden. And I really appreciated what the gentleman shared in the video about, that you can still be a voice of forgiveness and grace. And I just you don't see that as much, right?
No.
Because it's so focused on the political items that you shared, Dave, about like all the arguments on why it is okay. And then I just hope that people will continue to be brave in those moments, right? Like my mom, right? And to say what she did. But, at the end of the day, it's like everything's up to God. And whatever's supposed to happen is supposed to happen, right? Like I was clearly supposed to be here, probably for a moment like this, right? And I did the same things. My parents were huge advocates into the pregnancy helpline in Three Rivers, where I'm from. And I told my story, right? In front of those people. And it's just important to have these moments, right? And like fully live into them and do uncomfortable things, which is right now for me, right? But there's just so many good things about this. But I really appreciate, Dave, how you highlighted how we just really need to support women who have gone through this. And I think too, even like husbands and family members, right? Like this is really hard. It's a really hard topic. It is a life, right?
Yes, it
that we're
is.
talking about.
Yeah.
So sorry, that was a very long-winded answer, and I
No.
thought I could do
No, that was.
well, but it's hard.
Thank you so
I'm
much.
so glad
for-
you were born, Layla.
Yes.
Thank you.
We all are.
I
Thank
think
you.
about how impoverished I and we would be without you in the picture. So we're so
Yeah.
grateful.
I always thought I'd go on the Oprah show, but I guess it was just, it's supposed to be the Connections
Post
post
show.
show.
The connections.
So I wasn't too
It's
far
almost
off.
like
Kinda
Oprah.
right. No, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're-
that is we
Yeah.
we connect with people so well through our story.
Yeah.
And I know that if there's anybody listening or listens down the line, or even if somebody asks a Q&A question and it's like your story is going to impact, and it already has impacted so many people. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for
Yeah, absolutely.
sharing that. So
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. And
It shows strength in you, Layla, for just being vulnerable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I usually do really well with it, but I guess today I feel like there's probably a lot of women in our church right now who have experienced this.
Yeah.
And
And it looks different for every woman,
yeah,
too.
it just hurts my heart
Yeah.
how much people can hurt over this.
And, like, it's not cookie cutter. Like, it's...
Yeah. There's so many different
And I
scenarios.
agree with, like, my biggest takeaway, Dave, was how you wrapped it up as well, of just, like, when we look at this topic, look at it with love and just loving people regardless of what they have done, what they haven't done. Like, it's so messy. Just like life. Life is messy, and
Yes, it is.
it's a broken world. And you just have to... It's so easy to get filled with rage and hate and want to judge people. But if we're not judging certain people, like, we can't be, pick and choose, Like, all of the topics we've talked about, you said today, like, loving people with, different viewpoints or that live different
Yep.
types of lives than us. We have to love everybody, regardless of things,
Absolutely.
and anything. You just got to love them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Because that's exactly what God is like.
Nope.
And we're just trying to be like him best we can.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And one of my big takeaways is also the wrap up. Love the wrap up.
Yeah.
But how each message that we've done in this series has all ended that way. It's how can we go back to loving God as much as possible, and loving people as much as possible, and caring for people as much as possible, even the ones that disagree, or even the ones that have made these life-altering changes or choices. How can we still love, and how can we still care for people? Which is why every single week we've asked some sort of question of how can we love people better? How can we accept people better? How can we serve people better? And guess what? Spoiler alert, we have one of those questions we're going to do in just a minute. But yeah, I loved the wrap up. I absolutely loved that guy's testimony. I can't remember the name off the top of my head, and I loved getting to hear your story. Thank you so much for sharing that
Yeah, absolutely.
again. So Dave, I think that you just did such a fantastic job of approaching this with such grace and with such
One-
truth.
And just love and
Yeah, and love
for people. You can tell, Dave, in every single message that you've done, it's coming straight from the Lord and straight from just the
Yes.
intense amount of love that you have in your heart for others.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I pray when I'm over in the corner that I'm in, I'm doing two things. Number one, I'm doing vocal exercises in the hope I have enough voice to get through the service. and I'm praying. And my prayers is twofold. One is that I communicate God's word accurately. Okay, that this is what God, because frankly, nobody should care what I think, but caring what God thinks is a really big deal. But secondly, that I also convey the heart of God behind what he says.
You do it so well, Dave.
Because the content without the heart, it doesn't impact us the right way, because it's only understanding how deeply God cares, which is typified in the gift of his son, Jesus, who died so that we could be reconciled to God. And so just recognizing that we have to wade through issues, we have to see God's perspective, And like today, I had to try to build a case, but I don't ever want it to just be issues. These are people, real human beings with their one and only life who matter in the here and now forever. And if we ever separate issues from people, we're no longer like God in how we deal with anything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Next week, we give a little teaser in case nobody's looked at it in their book. We're doing this thing called a Selah, which basically means, or Selah, however you want to say it, which means rest. So what we're going to be doing in this deconstruction series is we're going to be taking a week where we know that with these topics, emotions can rise and all that. We're just going to take a week to rest. And one of the things I want to do before we go into that week is kind of take everything that we've talked about in the past 4 weeks and evaluate it and look at one of the main principles is we need to love people and we need to care for people, and even the ones that we don't agree with, we need to do this. We need to still serve them and to break these down in just a couple of questions. So the very first one is, what are some easy ways, like super easy ways that we can love our neighbor this week? Because one of our goals here with this post show is to help you guys who are watching, give you easy ways to apply the message, but also to go out and live out what we're talking about in this message and so far in this series. So what are some easy ways that we can love our neighbor this week?
I think a couple things come to mind for me is the act of just being present, like small things, right? Where I don't, and we don't need to be extremely educated about the Bible and have all of the facts to be prepared to maybe support anybody going through challenging topics like we've covered over the last few weeks. But just the act of being present, like fully present, right?
Sure.
And willing to listen, I think goes a long way. I think I've mentioned this in the past too. Like, I get very intimidated about having tough conversations with people because I feel like I am not educated enough to talk about certain topics with these people. And I have shied away from times that I know that God wanted me to be there. And I just trust that I'll have another opportunity. I always talk with my hands and end up hitting this microphone.
Yeah, talk with my hands too.
So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me is just, trying not to get in your head and just the act of simply being there, even if you don't
Showing
have
up. Yep.
the right words to say. I just have to trust, and I encourage others to trust that that's going to be a good starting point, and it's going to go farther than you realize.
Absolutely. I mean, and sometimes with like just being there doesn't even mean we have to say anything.
Exactly.
I mean, we see in the Bible, we see with Ezekiel, he's with these Israelites, and he sits there for 7 days and doesn't say anything, and then God gives him the vision to tell the people. So sometimes God just wants us to sit there with people.
Yep.
So absolutely, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It just makes perfect sense. It starts there. That was so well said, Layla.
Thanks.
Sometimes just asking questions, how you doing, showing interest in somebody's life. That doesn't happen with the frequency in our culture that it used to. And when you're just there going, I'm just interested, tell me a little bit about what you're going through or how things are going, it just helps to build that bridge and make that connection.
Absolutely.
And not worry if tough topics come up. If they happen to, there's no reason to have an answer in that moment.
Yeah.
It's okay to even say, I'm not sure about that one to go, but you know what? I'm here with you. I love you. That struggle has to be so significant, whatever the case may be. Let people feel love first.
Yeah.
Because they need
Absolutely.
that before an answer is going to make any difference anyway.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My answer is like a, well, duh kind of answer, but it's way easier said than done. When people in our life are difficult or they make choices that we don't agree with or whatever it might be, like, take a step back and don't let your initial reaction or thought take charge. Take a step back and, like, what would Jesus do in that situation?
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've been intentional about in my past couple weeks, is not just like instantly going off of like my initial reaction.
Yeah.
and treating people with love and care and respect, even when they don't deserve it. When they've done nothing right to me, I've still been showing up and loving and caring and respecting for people.
And I don't think that that's like a duh moment, because it's so easy, especially when you have really strong feelings.
Yeah.
Just not be thinking clearly and like,
Absolutely.
right. And you want to like go into rage mode. So
Yeah.
I think it's a really, really good answer.
Yeah, that was a really good answer. And to piggyback off of that one, which also kind of feels like a well duh type thing, but it's so difficult to actually do, is to pray for people.
Yeah.
Like I there's been situations in my life, even people that I've done ministry with, that I've gotten so frustrated and so mad at, that praying for them is like the last thing I want to do. And it's so much of like, all right, I'm going to surrender what I want to do, and I'm going to love them, even though they might not know that I'm praying for them.
No.
It's still an act of love, because we are going and talking to God and going, God, I know that I'm having these problems with these people, but I just pray that you give this person peace and you give this person patience, or whatever that prayer request is. So that's definitely one way that's very hard to do, but a great thing to do.
Yeah. God tells us to love our enemies.
Yeah.
And not just enemies, but the people that we don't agree with, or the people that have sinned royally. I mean, we all sin royally, but like things where we're like, they did that, we're supposed to love them.
Yep.
We're not supposed to judge them. We're supposed to love them.
Absolutely.
And like Jesus said, pray for people that are even persecuting you or mistreating you or saying all sorts of wrong things about you. And
Yep.
I have found for me that when I feel that, because I feel that too, Lexy, boy, do I feel that strongly in me. I want to rise up. And it's so easy to go, it's righteous indignation. It's usually just me being ticked off because something, right?
No, I feel that. Like, I want to like fight. Like, there's injustice happening here, and that's not okay with me. I'm not going to let that fly. And
Yep.
I want to push it and challenge it and question it. But yeah,
But for me anyway, until I prayed, I really shouldn't do that.
yes, yeah.
Because when I pray, there are a couple of things happen. Number one, God actually begins working in those people in a way far beyond
Yeah,
anything I could do and in the
absolutely.
best ways. But it changes my heart toward the person. It helps me to see them more like God sees them, and that always tempers the way I respond. What I say, how I say it, big time.
That one sentence you said, Dave, speaks volumes. Not how we see people, but how God sees people. Because we see people through broken human lenses,
Yeah. Yeah.
and God doesn't see them that way.
Yeah.
He never
Absolutely.
sees them that way.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, you did just make a comment a little while ago about praying for those who even persecute us, and I want to take that a step further. So we know that throughout the series, whenever we believe and stand firm on what the Bible says, whenever it's accurately interpreted, like our first guiding principle talks about, that persecution can, and let's be honest, will follow from people around us. If you were to be talking to somebody right now, and I can imagine there's probably people that are watching this right now that have experienced this, what encouragement would you give somebody that's either going through that persecution for believing and standing firm on the Bible, or are afraid to go out and truly say, like, this is what I believe because this is what God wants, because they're afraid of that persecution? What encouragement would you give somebody like that who may be experiencing that?
Layla and I are locked in a death stare right
I'm
now.
like, what's the answer, Dave? I think this is such a good question.
I forgot I typed this one out. It's right there on the screen.
Drew's like, what was the question again?
That's the question.
Perhaps in no particular order. One, don't take persecution personally. If we're actually representing Jesus, now if we're getting persecuted because we're jerks, then we deserve it. But if we're actually representing Jesus in both concept and also in love and respect, don't take it personally. I think of the time when the Hebrews, in their transition out of slavery into becoming a nation, were ticked off at their circumstances, and they wanted to kill Moses and get a new leader. And God, in essence, comes to Moses and go, hey, Moses, their problem isn't with you. It's with me. So if we're representing him, to try not to take it personally.
Yeah.
Understand that there's a spiritual battle going on for that person's heart, and we want God to win, right? So don't take it personally. And then another thing that might be helpful is to go, this very persecution is something God will use to help open and change their heart. And again, I think of Stephen in Acts chapter 7. He was like the first Christian martyr, and he preaches this amazing sermon, tells the truth. They're convicted, they hate what he said, and they drag him outside of the city, and they literally stone him to death. And it says that there was this Pharisee, whose name was Saul, standing right there consenting to his death, like holding their outer garments and supplying with rocks so they could do this. Fast forward a couple chapters. That same Saul's walking down a road, and all of a sudden, blinding light, he meets Jesus. When you meet a dead guy, you that should make you take note, right? And he's like, wait a minute, what? And he's like, meets Jesus. And Jesus goes, it's hard for you to kick against the goads. And that was a proverbial statement, and it spoke of, it's tough to live with such conviction, isn't it? What conviction was Saul under? He watched Stephen die. He watched Stephen go, Lord, don't lay this sin to their charge. He watched Stephen look up and go, I see Jesus standing at the right hand of heaven. It was just like Jesus when Jesus died. And to see someone with such dignity, respect, love, and grace lose their lives was such a source of conviction to Saul, it led to his conversion. And so I think that when people heap abuse of any kind, verbal, physical, whatever kind, that as they get that out, but they see a response of love and grace, it does something inside that impacts them and brings the kind of conviction that can lead to their salvation.
Yeah.
So those might be just a couple of things that can help if we actually encounter any sort of pushback.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Does anybody have anything they want to add on to that before we wrap up? Yeah.
Dave, you nailed that.
Yeah.
That
oh
was,
my God, you topped that.
That was great.
I should do this for a living.
Yeah, you
I
should.
think you should. That'd be a good idea. And you should write a book.
There's lots of books out there, Josh.
I know that, but you can write one too. There's never enough.
There's no.
All right. Well, before we sign off, we do have some resources that are in the book that we want to share with you guys. You can go look. There's even more, but these are two that Pastor Dave highlighted either in today's message or he looks at and goes, man, if you're going to look at one or you're going to look at two, these are the ones I want you to look at. One of them is a YouTube video, so you can go on YouTube and you can look up the title. The title is Human Being versus Human Person. And it's all about healing our culture, information on all that kind of stuff, because in today's message you talked about
It's short and concise, and really it's really just helpful and encouraging. Yeah.
So I highly encourage all of you guys to go and listen to that. It ties into exactly what Dave talked about in today's message with some of the things that people try to say is, what's the difference between a human being and a human person and all that kind of stuff. Another one is a book called Christianity and Abortion by Eric Jones. The summary that Pastor Dave gives in our book, the Deconstruction book, is a very good explanation of the Christian position for being pro-life based on Scripture. So
It's a shorter read, it's an easy read, and it also has the kind of tenor or spirit to it that I would hope anybody speaking of the subject would have.
absolutely. Well, Dave, thank you for picking those out. Again, I highly encourage you to go do that. If you go into your book, go to week 5 in there. You can go. There's all the devotionals that you can do throughout this week, and then at the very end, there is the oh my gosh, I just said it. I'm totally blanking. The resources page that has even more resources on it. And of course, on Wednesday night at 7 p.m., Dave and I will be doing another Q&A where we're going to be answering the questions that you guys have about this series that we have gone through. You can go to my3c.org and you can go to, there's like these 3 lines. You can click that. You can click submit a question, type in your question, totally anonymous. We have no idea who you are, and we will answer your question next Wednesday. It doesn't even have to be about this past Sunday's message. It can be about a Sunday that happened a couple weeks ago, and you're like, hey, you know what? I have a question about this. So we highly encourage you to submit your questions. We are not afraid of them here at Connections. But until then, until next Sunday, we're praying for you guys. We love you guys. Have a fantastic week.